Good morning. Feel free to put your video and your sound on during this webinar. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Zahara. Hi, Adrian, Emma, Melissa. We've got Sharon and Des, our presenters here. We might give it another minute and then we'll kick off.
Morning.
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 We'd love to see some beautiful faces.
They might be having morning tea.
Hi, Melissa. Well, we'll just give it one more minute, but whilst we're waiting, thank you so much for joining us today. This is our first inaugural webinar series event. So we will be learning technology today. So apologies if we do have any hiccups at all, but fingers crossed it'll go smoothly. And yeah, thank you so much for joining. Well, we might kick off and we'll join people in as they sort of arrive. So I'll just start with an acknowledgement to country. So I'd like to acknowledge the Gurrumpul, Noongar and Nunukul traditional owners of the land upon which we meet across the Redlands region, and pay respects to elders past, present and future. My name is Kate. I'm the project manager for the Redlands Regional Jobs Committee, and I'd just like to quickly introduce the two other major speakers that you'll have today. We've got Des Kerr, who is our chairperson of the Redlands Regional Jobs Committee. So I'll just let Des quickly say hello.
Good morning, all. Thanks for joining us, for this first opportunity. So got the dual hat today, the RJC chair, and also presenting from my business perspective as well. So thank you.
And also like to introduce Sharon Justo, who will also be presenting later in today's segment. Sharon, if you just want to say hi, and we'll do proper introductions later.
Hi, everyone. Hope that I can add some good tips today to how everyone can attract better talent into their business.
Thanks, Sharon. So we will kick off with our proceedings today. So I'm just going to share my screen so we can all have a look at presentation. Just 1 second. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen and I'll just put it into full presenter mode. All right. Now, apologies, I can't see the rest of you whilst I've got this in presentation mode. So if you do wish to ask a question, please put your what's it called, your audio on, and just reach out and say, sorry, I just need to ask a question. So we'll get started. So yeah, welcome to webinar 1, which is Redlands Workforce Reality, Recruiting in a Tight Labour Market. I am, as I mentioned, the project manager for the Redlands Regional Jobs Committee, and my name's Kate Adams. And we are one of 12 regional jobs committees. We are proudly funded and supported by the Queensland Government. And you can see on the screen all the different regions that are funded under the program. And we are obviously the Redlands Regional Jobs Committee. So we have been operational since the start of 2020, and we are funded under our current agreement until the 30th of September 2027. Across those 6 years that we've been operating, we've had very different approaches based on what's been happening in the workspace, I guess you'd call it, or the economic environment. So we adapt and we refine what we're doing as a regional jobs committee based on what's happening. So it was very different during COVID, where there was an awful lot of unemployed people and not many jobs, to what we're doing right now, which is a lot of jobs and not a lot of people to fill them. So the webinar series is one of the things that we are doing under our Regional Jobs Committee remit. And effectively at the bottom of the screen, it says we're designed to bring regional stakeholders together to create and coordinate approaches to the development of unique local workforce solutions. So it has to be led by our region, and it has to be relevant and effectively addressing workforce solutions that are obvious here in our Redlands region, hence the regional approach of the committees. So very briefly, we have our chairperson, Des, who you just met, 12 committee members and 10 supporters, and that photo was taken at our January committee meeting. The only person in that photo that's not an actual RJC committee member is Rebecca Young in the middle, and she was a former chairperson of the Regional Jobs Committee and came to support and provide I guess, linkage and direction between the elected government representatives and our committee. So we do report to members of Parliament. We report straight up the line to the Director General and the Minister, Ros Bates, and we also do a range of advocacy in addition to delivery. So they're the major elements we cover, which is reporting, advocacy, and delivery. So this is really sort of what we're about. We also have myself as a project manager and a marketing team who does our videography, our comms creation, etc. But we're all driven by the actual committee members' knowledge, insights, and development of the action plan and working groups. So this is a summary, and apologies, it's a little bit blurry, of our action plan for this year. So I won't go into too much detail. It will all be on our website, and I might email this out after today. But effectively, the reason I put it on the screen is to just sort of share on the left-hand side, which has the aqua side. You can see the main themes that we're really targeting in this year, and the initiatives themselves, such as the webinar today and the series that we'll have of webinars, kind of is an initiative to address some of those on the left challenges. So this one, for example, falls under the top line, which is workforce planning, and more into the workforce participation. So as a result of the webinar series, we're hopeful that we'll be able to help support businesses who are joining the webinar series to do more workforce planning, understand where to turn, what to be doing, and then that will in turn, or as a result, will result in greater workforce participation in our region. Again, sorry for the blurriness. This is kind of how we're doing it. So it's industry-led. All of what we're doing is being driven by local industry working groups in a couple of key areas, which Des will talk a little bit more about. And we've got local focus, collaboration. It is actions-oriented. We are data-driven, and we are preparing for the future in the work that we're doing across our region. Now, I'm just going to quickly share with you some things that we have available for you, our businesses in the region, that you can access and use. They're all there and functional right now. So for any of you who aren't aware already, we have a website which has a resources hub. It's divided into audience types. So you can click on employer, job seeker, or schools, and it will give you relevant resources for those particular audience type. It includes videos, how-to guides, tip sheets, a whole heap of different resources, plus links to major government programs that are there, that exist for those particular audience types. It's effectively just a one-stop place to go to start your journey looking for information, linkages, and relevant resources. This is an example of some of our how-to guides, again, divided into the audience type, things like how to become an employer of choice, how to create an inclusive workplace. There's a whole heap of guides that we've created that are there on that resource page, which you can download at any time and help support you in your workforce planning and delivery. And we've also created, it launched in February, a brand new what's called the Redlands Coast Jobs Hub. And the tagline or the slogan is where Redlands people meet Redlands jobs. And it really is about that. And we've had some really good news stories of businesses who have started using it. And the comments that they've made are, it's free, so it costs them nothing. Two, because it is targeting local Redlands people, they have been able to attract Redlands people only applying for their roles, whereas when they've been doing other types of advertisement, particularly through things like Seek, the bulk of the applications they've been getting have been from overseas or far afield. They've had to sift through a whole heap of applications before finding anyone suitable. And they've found that using our jobs board, they've got very targeted, very good candidates that are all living here in our region. So it's a new tool. It also has for employers a built-in AirCV search function. And effectively, you can search via keywords or skills. You put in key skills words, and it will then, with the press of a button, shortlist candidates that meet the key skills that you're searching for. And those candidates are effectively, it's called an SCV, but it's effectively like a resume or a cover sheet for that individual. And you can then click in, if you like the candidate from reading it, you can reach out to them and you can tell them you've got a job available, you might like to apply. You can ask to catch up for a coffee and talk more with them. And you can also add them to your talent pool. So your talent pool, I liken it to a bit like a Woolworths shopping cart that you can go back to later. You can actually put candidates that look of interest into your talent pool, and you can contact them when you have a job that becomes available that matches their talent. So it's a way to find hidden local talent, and also what it says on the screen is transferable skills. So really highly recommend sign up to have an employer account, and also request to be have access to search the SCVs. And then you automatically will have a talent pool built into your employer account that you can add talent into your talent pool. Just another example of some work we're doing. So we are basically working in working groups for key industries at the moment. And one of the key industries we're working with is the health and care sector. We have a big event coming up next week, which is about getting industry in the room together to work out at a regional level, how does the health and care sector collaborate to solve workforce issues and challenges. So that will then inform that working group's actions across the next 18 months. So just as an example, that's the kind of things that we're doing. Now we're going to do a Slido activity. If you are able to grab your phones and scan the QR code that is on the screen, we will be able to join a Slido activity, which is asking a few questions, and then the results will come up on the screen. So each of you who are answering it in live time, it'll come up on the screen. So hopefully you've each had a moment to get your phone and a QR code scanned. And I will then head across to the presenter mode. Okay, so present. If any of you have not got the QR code sorted just yet, let me know. And this is it here, so you can have another moment to do that. All right, so hopefully this will now come up on your screen and allow you to answer the first question. So it's, what roles are the hardest to fill? And the reason we're asking these questions now is it will allow Des and Sharon to help tailor the next parts of delivery. So we know what you're all currently struggling with in terms of recruitment. Okay, so experienced personnel, that's a challenge. Yep. Healthcare, hospitality. Well, that's good to hear, because we do have healthcare, hospitality, tourism are two of our working group specific target areas. Educators, childhood, early childhood, diploma, chef. Yeah, all challenging roles at the moment from the things we've been hearing from business. So thank you. That gives us a good understanding for the next section, the kind of roles that you're each trying to fill. So we might go to the next question. What's the biggest challenge you face in today's recruitment environment? So there's a range of different options there to choose from. Feel free to, I think it'll allow you to answer more than one if they're more than one relevant. Retaining new hires. Okay, great. Good to know. Assessing cultural fit. That's right up. So we've got two that are right up. The retaining new hires and assessing cultural fit are right up Des's area of expertise. So that's good to know. We've got some people struggling with that at the moment. And I'm sure Des will be able to give you some tips and ideas on that. Finding qualified, suitable candidates. That's right up Sharon's area of expertise. Okay. And competing with larger companies is not a major one, so good to know. Thank you. What would you change if you could redesign your workforce? A couple of keywords there. Transport issues. Yep, make more employee roles dynamic. Great. Transport issues is a major issue, particularly for that east-west connectivity in our region. North-south is not as bad, but east-west is near non-existent. Job descriptions and ratios. Excellent. I'm guessing that's in childcare with the ratios part there.
Yes, it is.
Excellent. All right, we might go to the next question. So, how do you stay updated on recruitment trends and best practices? Where do you get your information from? There's industry events, online courses, networking with your peers, reading publications. None, not getting any, or other. Industry events and networking with peers. Great. Thank you. Next question. What percentage of roles receive 5 or less applicants? So general here. We just want to know how often are you getting small volume of applicants? (10 to 25%) and a 75 to 100%. Good to know. And how long does it typically take you to fill a vacancy? Less than 2 weeks, a month, 1 to 3 months, 3 to 6 months, or I've given up counting? Great. So less than a month, 1 to 3 months. Great. Well, let's hope we can bring it down to more like less than 2 weeks for you after today's advice.
100%.
Thank you. Which sourcing strategies have brought you the best candidates? Local jobs boards, such as the Redlands Coast Jobs Hub that we were just talking about. Employer referrals is getting votes. Great. Local jobs boards, community groups, networking events, recruitment-specific events, or other. Employee referrals, that's good to know. So your employees will actually can help find your next staff member. Definitely keen to hear more from you guys in the Q&A about that. If whoever's talked about employee referrals, how you've got that working for you, that'd be great to share in the Q&A. How you actually get your employees to be the recruiters for you for your next staff. Have you used our new free jobs hub or Redlands Coast Jobs Hub? And if you have, has it helped you? No, not heard of it until now. Okay, that's good to know. It is new and we are trying to increase the awareness and effectively get more employers knowing that it exists and using it and more job seekers. And we're promoting it through all of our schools network, our employment services network, community groups, multicultural groups. We're trying everything we can to get it out there. So we've got a volume of both job seekers and also employers using it, because once you get a high volume, you'll get those good skills matches. Yes, however, it did not lead to a recruitment outcome. Sorry to hear it didn't get you a good outcome. Let's hope that in the future it does.
Okay, but in all honesty, it wasn't entirely your fault. I think I was just testing it out. So I will be more serious about it moving forward.
Sounds good. What is your preferred recruitment method? Using a recruitment agency or in-house or mix? Great. Mix will give you pretty much everything you can be doing type approach, which is always good. Excellent. We'll move to the next. How do you measure the effectiveness of your recruitment process? Time to hire, quality of the hire, the retention rate, candidates' feedback, or other? Quality of hire and retention rate. Great. Yep. They're two very good metrics as opposed to just worrying about quickly recruiting someone. What retention strategy has proven most effective for your business? We are almost done. Apologies for the long questions, but it really helps set the scene for today's discussion. So, offering competitive benefits, providing ongoing training and development, creating positive work environments, offering career advancement opportunities. So, we're getting good answers to providing ongoing training and development and creating a positive work environment. Great. Do you know the primary reason staff choose to leave your business? Better opportunities elsewhere, better compensation elsewhere, lack of career growth, or poor work-life balance, or other. And other could be family commitments, health, it could be anything. Wonderful. I guess one tip with that is asking. A lot of people don't bother to ask their staff when they're leaving why, but it's an important question. Okay, and that's the end of our Slido. So thank you very much, everybody. That gives us a good understanding, and we'll switch back across to our presentation. So I would now like to introduce Des. Des, apologies, because I've just realized my speaking notes are on the bottom of the screen here. So I'll just quickly explain. Des has been the Redlands Regional Jobs Committee Chairperson since 2024. He's a long-time resident of the Redlands. He's a proactive community member, an independent people and culture consultant and business founder who helps small to medium business owners feel protected and safe through specialised advice and support regarding people-related matters. He ensures businesses are compliant with industrial relations and employee relations legislation. He's tertiary qualified with over 20 years experience in practical HR, learning development and operational experience. His regular client base is broad, covering businesses operating in hospitality, event management, engineering, manufacturing, waste management, transport, disability services, retail, and more. His passion lies in people being good humans and him providing positive outcomes for his clients and their teams. Please join me in thanking and welcoming Des to present today. So thank you, Des. I'll hand over to you now.
Thanks, Kate. And yeah, thanks everyone for joining us today. Like Kate said, small group to start with, but what was that movie or that line in their movie? Build it and they will come. So we had to start somewhere. So as Kate mentioned, I do have a dual role here today. I'm the chairperson of the Redlands Jobs Committee. So that's a volunteer role, and all that information you also just gave us then in the Slido will also be used to help us, continue to form up our ideas of what we can do differently as a committee, and use the state government funding we've been given to try and make change. And then also, I have my own consulting business, just local here in the Redlands. I look after small and medium businesses, but being in the HR industry for as long as I have, seen a lot of things over that time. So hopefully in my time that I've got today, I can share some of my knowledge. My presentation's not too data heavy, but we did put out that we would talk a little bit about the Queensland and the local Redland market. And then I guess some things from a HR point of view, from my perspective, and my experience just to share with you, and then leading into, of course, Sharon's expertise as well at the back end of it. So the title for today was what's really happening in our local labour market and why recruitment has changed. And I laugh because we know it's not like it used to be. So we've got to do things differently now. Thanks, Kate.
Apologies, just 1 second. I've got somebody saying they're trying to get in. Let me just double check if I can see if they're sitting in the waiting room. How do I get back? Apologies. More show meeting. Okay, are they sitting there? No, they're not in the waiting room. Apologies for that.
Righto, thank you. Next slide, if that's okay. So we want to just do a little bit of data, like I said, not too heavy. But I guess, the core message from me today, that the labour market hasn't just become harder, it has shifted. So now we're dealing a lot more with obviously our candidate expectations of their role, not in recruitment, but also when they first start, participation rates, our demographics, flexibility is a big one that we need to embrace. Competition amongst employers and skills shortages. So as I've put in there, some businesses we're still trying to recruit like it's 2019, but we are 2026 now and things have definitely changed. Thanks, Kate. So just quickly, a little bit of a Queensland update. Kate and I, as a part of our role at the RJC, went to a workshop in November with all the other RJC representatives around the state. So they did provide us with a little bit of Queensland data that we'll just put up a couple of slides on. Like I said, not too much, but just showing there how tight the labour market is. So from my perspective, this slide shows two important things: that we've certainly got record levels of people participating now in the workforce, but at the same time, employment is growing fast. So even though there's more people are working, we still haven't got enough to meet the demand, and that's why the labour market's feeling tight, certainly at the moment. So what was that? 81.3% participation for Queensland, and you'll see the slide that we'll show later. I think it's about 61.4% for Redlands. So the workforce, yeah, there's a lot of people working, but we're working differently, aren't we? And want different things from how we work. Thanks, Kate. And then across the different cohorts, you'll see there that unemployment is low across, all groups, as it's got there, not just overall, but youth, mature workers, and other cohorts as well. So there's really no single group we can rely on to fill the gap. And I guess Sharon will talk to more of that later, but the labour market is tight across the board. We're having to compete with each other for our employees that are working. I've been going through a bit of a process for clients at the moment, and even to get to the interview stage, and then they're still turning us down. This morning I got a couple of emails after we've been through the interview process, so it is tough. So we will send this information out, but yeah, they're the different cohorts. Thanks, Kate. And then this one is our different industries. So across kind of thing, employment has shifted across industries. And what's clear is that growth is being driven by a few sectors, like we talked about healthcare, and we'll talk about that in a different slide, construction, and a lot of you mentioned professional services. So that's another area. So we're not just dealing with the shortage of workers, we're dealing with the mismatch, between where our jobs are growing and where people are available. So that's pretty much what that slide talks to there. Thanks, Kate. And then the workforce pressure. Obviously, Queensland is projected to need 156,000 additional workers by 27-28 and 185,000 additional workers by 28-29. So we get some of this data from Jobs Queensland and some of the industry forums we go to. And the critical areas, again, health, aged care, construction, and hospitality, which a lot of you talked to there before. This one just shows you some top areas, the top 5 regions of employment, top 5 occupations. So again, a few of you said professionals, that's right up there. At the same time, healthcare and social assistance in industries, retail, construction, education and training, and then the top qualification fields, so management again, commerce, engineering, technologies. So we'll talk to you on the next slide how we're looking, not the next one, the one after, on how we're looking to address that. And obviously construction with the Olympics effect, as we know, the infrastructure demand is creating enormous competition. So some of the figures out there are saying up to 46,000 construction workers will be short in the coming years across all the areas: trades, admin, logistics, support, suppliers. So that's something we've got to be mindful of. And then the healthcare and care economy growth. As we know, it's now Queensland's largest and fastest growing sector. And it's important for us in the Redlands, as we put there, because of our ageing population, the NDIS growth, and our aged care demand that we have in our region. And then just a little bit lastly of the Redlands Coast snapshot from the figures we've got. So unemployment in the Redlands still sits around that 3.2 to 3.3%. So effectively, we do have full employment and labour force participation around 61.4%. 30% of the workforce work part-time. Remote work adoption has risen to 15% since 2016 census. So our economic development team at Redlands City Council, obviously we've got a census coming up this year, but we believe that data, Kate, might not be available till the end of next year, is what we're hearing.
Correct.
But that'll give us some up-to-date information. So as we put there simply aren't large pools of available workers, as we all know, and we're all competing for the same workforce. So there was this document created, was one of the funding areas from the Redlands Coast Jobs. The economic development team, led by Noreen at Redlands City Council, developed this economic snapshot for us. You can search that online, or we can send you out a copy after today. I think there's just a slide to it next, Kate, isn't there as well?
Yes.
Showing some of the key items there, top 5 industries. But there's I think there's about 4 or 5 pages of data in there just on the Redlands that I think some of you might find handy. And then moving on from that, the Redlands industry pressure points again. So our action plan, we're very much industry led, as Kate talked to. So we've targeted 4 priority areas, which we believe the feedback we've had from state government is we're bang on with what they want to see from us putting forward. We're still waiting for official sign off, but feedback so far is positive. So health and care, hospitality and tourism. So I think in one of the Slidos you talk to chefs and wait staff and so forth, construction and trades, and emerging industries and technology. So we've actually put some under our RJC working group, we've put individual working groups together, and they're led by industry. So we have, a general manager from Mater Hospital leading the health and care. We have Gordon from the Wellington Point Farm leading up the hospitality and tourism drive. Susie, our chamber president, is caretaking in that construction role at the moment and leading that for us. And then we have a gentleman, Wayne Lee, leading up emerging industries and technology. So it's good for everyone in the webinar today to know that there is work being done to how we drive jobs in those key areas. That's our priority. So when we're looking at all that, and that's enough data for me, I always say to Kate, that's why I'm in HR, not finance, because data is not my thing. But it is a bit of a perfect storm because we've got low unemployment, we've got skill shortages, we've got an aging workforce. We do have some burnout that we're seeing post-COVID mind shift. We all seen that how people want to work differently now post-COVID. Everyone's taken stock of their life and how they work and what's important to them. And then obviously the Olympic infrastructure demand coming. So there's a big shift, as I've got on my next slide there, that we need to factor in. So the stuff that, I deal with more day to day, obviously, and Sharon will talk more about this, more qualified than me. But in the past, employers chose candidates, as we know. I remember the days, I'm old enough to remember the days when all the applications used to come in writing, and I'd have a big pile on my desk that you had to go through, particularly if you opened a new business. Job ads drove applications. We know that was the thing. The ads worked a lot more back then, and salary generally was enough, and loyalty was assumed a lot in the past. Where now, as we're seeing, candidates do choose us. So it's very much candidates choosing employers, and our brand does matter more than ever with social media and social enterprise, and people want to work for businesses where they can see value and they're doing some great work. Flexibility is expected. So I still have clients that I have had clients that the mentality is still, well, this is an office job. It's 9 to 5. It's Monday to Friday. That's when I need you to come in. I need you at your desk. And as we know, flexibility now, some of it's legislated, particularly for certain categories of people. But flexibility is not just working from home. It can be late start, early finish. It can be 4 day week. It can be a 9 day fortnight. It's looking at, people leaving during the middle of the day to go and manage family responsibilities. Recruitment now, speed is critical, and I'll leave Sharon to talk to that as well. But as we know, we can't sit on our heels like we used to and take a long time to review applications and work through them. We have to be quicker with our processes. A lot of you mentioned culture, absolutely important. Now, your workplace culture, and I do a lot of work for clients on doing culture reviews and drilling down to, what the culture in the business and what does matter to your employees. And that's extremely important. And then retention, a lot of you talked about that as well. And that's got to start from our recruitment strategy. So there is that big shift that we've seen, a lot of us have seen over time. And then what candidates actually want. Thanks, Kate. So flexibility, we talked to leadership. Leadership is really, really important. Again, how you or your managers or your leaders show up and how they treat your staff and how we run the business is extremely important. You may have all seen the stats, that more people leave their managers, not people don't leave companies, because the manager's the one they work with day in, day out. Psychological safety, as well as being a legislated code of practice now to maintain workplaces that are psychologically safe. Again, there's a lot of factors in that we could do another whole webinar on, and I'm sure you've sat in on some as well. Culture, stability, development. I use the joke, and some of you have probably had it, that a new employee starts on a Monday and by Friday they want to know when will they become a manager, when will they become a supervisor. It's not so much that we have to meet those expectations, but people want to know from the beginning, what's their pathway? What's the development opportunities if I come and join your organisation? And then, of course, work-life balance does fit into flexibility. So now it's not all about the money. People aren't just choosing jobs, they're choosing the environment they want to work in. And then moving on from that, some of the biggest mistakes Sharon and I see out there, still that slow recruiting processes, perhaps poor communication, whether that's in the recruitment process or within the business, unrealistic expectations on people. Again, the old adage that if you want something done, give it to the person that's already working the hardest in your business because you know they're going to do it. Is that fair? While others that may not be as efficient stand around and seem to be not having to meet the same standards. Inflexible hours and a low focus on culture. Again, not focusing on your culture. And the rise of retention. Yeah, we do need to consider people's burnout, whether they're disengaged with our business and still turning up, as we know, and that quiet quitting. Counter offers are a big thing. So my son manages a retail outlet while he's studying, and a lady came in a couple of weeks ago, bought a pair of shoes, and said, "By the way, I really love your customer service. Here's my business card. I work in a firm where we could pay you a lot more than you're earning here. Drop me a line." So I guess that's happening out there. And obviously the cultural expectations of what people are expecting when they go to work. And particularly the younger ones coming through the workforce, we have to think about what sort of example are we setting for them. I'm where I am today in my career, and I can name them on one hand, some of the great mentors that I had in the early days of me starting work. And I still remember their name, and I know who they are and the impact they had on me as a young fella starting in the workforce. So, who are those people in your business that creates that environment where people go home from work really driven and happy and have great conversations about working in your business? that's up to you. That's up to us to set the tone. I think we're nearly there. So what smarter employers are doing differently? Certainly the faster hiring. Again, Sharon will talk better to that. Having flexible work models in place. Stronger onboarding. That's a real big area again that I see a lot of businesses not doing well in, where the old days of onboarding, welcome Des, this is day one, there's your computer, there's your desk, we'll see you at lunchtime, versus having a 30, 60, 90-day onboarding plan and really map out what their first 3 months looks like, what their first 6 months looks like. And I know Sharon's got a good story about that as well. Investing in your leaders for their development and how they manage people, particularly that emotional intelligence, is critical, and culture and what they can do to, run an effective business, how they engage their employees, and internal progression. Again, showing that opportunity of you start here, but you could go here. And I know through our RJC, we're working with the health sector, particularly to do some great work in that space at the same time. So last couple of slides from me. The businesses that adapt will win the workforce. This is no longer just a recruitment challenge. It's a leadership, culture, and workforce strategy challenge. And then lastly, this one sort of hit home to me. The labour market may eventually stabilise, possibly, as we know, things will shift, but our expectations of work and our workforce have permanently changed. There's no going back from what our employees expect now, and it's tough. But the big businesses that can adapt, like it said on the previous slide, and I get excited by opportunities when I work with great clients that want to be great with their people and really create workplaces where people will thrive. They're the opportunities for those great businesses. So thank you. Sorry, I whipped through that just a little bit, but conscious of time we've got today, but certainly available in the Q&A or contactable after today as well if you want to have a chat. Thanks, Kate.
Thank you, Des. That was fantastic. I'm now going to introduce Sharon. Again, I will learn for next time to have the speaking notes separate to the actual slideshow. So apologies for me having to click back out. So I'd just like to introduce Sharon Justo. She is the Director of Recruitment for You. With a career spanning over a decade, I actually think it might be a little bit more than that. I need to update that. Sorry, Sharon. In recruitment industry, Sharon has cultivated a reputation for excellence and integrity. Her journey began, like many in recruitment, by chance. But what she found was her passion for connecting the right people to the right opportunities. Sharon works across industries with a focus on sales and operational roles. She's driven by a commitment to professionalism and ethical recruitment practices. This has seen Sharon and her business become a trusted partner in talent acquisition. Her dedication to understanding the unique needs of both clients and candidates sets her apart, enabling her to deliver tailored solutions, driving success for all parties. Please give Sharon a warm welcome, and we thank Sharon for sharing her recruitment knowledge and expertise with us today. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you, Kate. And yes, it is 2 decades. I think I'm coming up to 23 years actually. So I don't look that old, so it's okay. Look, thank you. And thank you, Des, as well. I think it's really insightful seeing some of those facts and figures there, but also just understanding how expectations have changed so much, and how I think a lot of businesses still think they can get away with doing things the way that they used to do it. And then, looking at the results that they're getting at the moment, the market has changed, the behaviors have changed out there. And I think like anything, every couple of years we need to look at the way we're doing things and make adjustments to ensure that we're moving forward always. I wanted to give you a few, practical examples, and I suppose I really want to be able to give you some strategies and some tips and tricks on how to do things differently. I'm going to share some of these with Kate afterwards, and I think she'll have a flyer that she can send out to everyone and make available as well. But I had a client come to me recently. They had a good business, good culture, good team. Their pay was good. There was nothing wrong with the job that they were positioning for them. They threw it out there on Seek. 8 weeks later, they've still got the same job happening. They've advertised it now twice. what are people thinking about that? So it's just a lot of money, a lot of effort on looking through those applications, and they weren't hitting the mark. They engaged with us, and their first question was, maybe we just need to rewrite our ad. Can you help us with that? Of course, anyone can rewrite an ad and anyone can make an ad sound good, but what's wrong with the actual role? And do we need to think about what that role was and what the type of candidates that we were attracting? So when we looked at what was written down, the role come across as very rigid. Their expectations were extremely high. They were waiting for the perfect person to come to them willingly and looking for that job. And right now, I think everyone's waiting for that perfect person. And you need to work out how your role can adapt to getting the best candidate out there to be able to do the job that actually needs to be done, and what you can do to then train and fill in those other gaps as well. And that's not to say that you need to hire, someone that can do 60% of the job and then, you're left doing the other 40%. Re-looking at that job and potentially redesigning what that actually is may make the world of difference. You'd be surprised the amount of companies that I think I work with that'll give me a job description and I look at the date, and I'm sure, Des, you see this as well, that, the job description hasn't been reviewed in several years. A lot of those things can change. The mentality, in a business should have changed, because, the market and the expectations of candidates have changed so much as well. For that client, we widened the background of what they could consider. We made adjustments to what the actual role needed. We redesigned ultimately, what that role was going to be doing on a day-to-day side of things, and the pool of candidates that we could then attract just kept widening. And it wasn't through the fact that we had changed the job was still there. We just opened up the parameters of what was available to them. Lots of people have transferable skills, and it's about tapping into that. And I think often we put ourselves in one little silo and go, they have to have A, B, and C, otherwise you couldn't possibly do this job. Now, if you think about it differently, and my son says to me all the time, Mum, when I grow up, I want to be a recruiter. Why does he think my job is easy? Why does he think that he could do this? Because he listens to lots of things though, and he sees it and he hears it. So why wouldn't we give someone, with that enthusiasm, the opportunity to go, could I train you on the things that you don't know? And could I make that actually work for me? And you have someone super engaged in that opportunity. It also then expands your pool of talent that you didn't necessarily have there before as well. The biggest shift that I see happening right now in businesses is that need for perfect is there, and people can't think outside of that. When you actually stop and break down a job, I think anyone would come up with multiple solutions to that, but our knee-jerk reaction sometimes and maybe lack of planning is, I've got a resignation, I now need to fill a vacancy. And we go straight into that fight mode of trying to find that best person. Once upon a time we could wait and have a vacancy and allow that time to pass, but I think now and probably prior means that we're losing money. You can't sit there and wait anymore. So we can't wait for the exact industry experience, for the exact systems background, for the perfect candidate to walk through our doors. We have to go out there and try and attract the right candidate for the business. We have to allow ourselves to be able to be a little bit vulnerable and look at how we can engage with different talent into our business versus just that rigid approach that we once had. When I've gone out there to market before, and we've talked about, well, I suppose I asked, is there, everyone's hired someone in the last little bit that they've looked at and kind of went, I wouldn't have hired that person. I'm sure we've necessarily had examples on both sides. I've made a hire, they didn't work. I've made a hire and I'm blown away because I've given someone the opportunity. Often we find that those opportunities come via our referral network, and everyone on the poll there mentioned that they get a lot of candidates that are referred to them. Did that candidate meet your original brief, or was it because Kate recommended someone and said, hey, I know of a good school leaver who might be great for that job, you're more inclined to make adjustments and allowances for people that are referred versus not. If you actually stopped and looked at the other side of that, you might also see that you'd attract better candidates as well. Some of the areas to consider when you're looking at a role, and I'm a big believer in pulling out that good old job description and breaking down what actually is a trainable skill and what is absolutely necessity for that job. Ask your staff as well. You'd be surprised, the manager may not always know what the staff member necessarily does on a day-to-day basis anymore. We have a role that we're working on at the moment, and the client has given me their full brief. It's a brand new role within the business. It's been there for about a year. Candidate is about to move to the Netherlands, from all places, with his girlfriend, and they need a replacement. They need to find someone. He said to me, the role's not perfect yet, Sharon. Like, it's not, we've still got work to do on this role. And so we nutted it out. We got everything out of what he needs and wants, and, what the future looks like, what good looks like, what maybe could look like. And then I said, can I speak to your candidate? Can I speak to the current person in that job? Because I'd love to find out what he thinks his job is and what he believes he's doing well and what has been working and what hasn't been working. And he was like, yeah, like that would be great. I'd love to know what he said. And look, the business is actually really open to it, but we've gone back and I've kind of gone, did you know this? And what about this? And what about this? And some of that he was like, wow, that's some really good things that I didn't actually think he was doing. But because the role also has an element of you're going to build this position as you go as well and create, it allowed us to be able to put some more fat into the role as well and make it an attractive proposition for someone coming into this, that they could have some creative license on what the future looked like for that role as well. When we talk to businesses sometimes, and I suppose I just want to give some simple examples of how to be able to decide, where and could you change a role? Could you look at a full-time role and breaking it up into 2 part-time roles? Does it have to be a 9-to-5 role? Could someone come in and start at 7 o'clock? Maybe you're not open at 7 o'clock, but is there an element of their day that they could be doing at 7 o'clock because they need to pick up the kids at 3 o'clock? Could you shift as simple as start times around? We have, workforces obviously, leaving the Redlands all the time, that they're prepared to travel and go into the city. And we started on a talk the other day and looked at the stats of how many people leave the Redlands every single day because there's no job here for them necessarily that fits their requirements or salary in some cases. But if that job fitted what they were looking for at the same time, would they stay? Potentially, but it's not a question. Go.
Sorry to interrupt. It's 56% of our Redlands community that is working leaves the Redlands to earn $1 on a daily basis. So that's a huge amount of our talent that's leaving. That means they've got on average 10 hours a week of commute time, if not more. There's a way to target your recruitment to attract that skilled talent to come back to work here in the Redlands.
Absolutely. Understanding what candidates want, again, will always change. And a lot of the time right now, it's not necessarily money all the time. It is a culture. It's that environment that they come to work and love. You find often, if you had to said to me, go into the city for, a job that's going to pay you $10,000 more in every year. And it'll be great because you get to go to the pub after work on a Friday and you get to do this and you get to do this. That's my worst nightmare. I want to come home. I want to pick up my kids. I want to be present, and not be walking through the door at 6:30 at night. Changing that and understanding, what your workforce actually wants and what's going to make your role and company and opportunity attractive to someone changes everything. How do you become attractive to someone, I think puts a whole different perspective on the job that you're offering as well. one of the biggest things that we see as well is, changing industry requirements. So do you have to have industry experience? Like I didn't have recruitment experience when I come into recruitment. It happened off chance. I actually used to be an operations manager in a directory assistance call center. There you go. That probably tells you how old I am now. But it was one of those things that I never would have thought about doing recruitment. But at the end of the day, I worked from a customer perspective, and we had a workforce that we needed to make sure that they were constantly replenished, because call center workers fall off all the time and don't stick around. So just looking at that, would I have got that job if I hadn't have known someone? And funny enough, I knew someone, and that's how I got an opportunity in there in the first place. So taking away some of those barriers as well. Sometimes candidate shortages mean, we have to look at the role and redesign how that actually is going to work for our candidates, not just necessarily for us. I suppose I call part of this, unicorn hunting. We want to know, we want you to understand, is it experience? Is it culture? Is it that they're looking for, availability immediately? Are they looking for someone that's never going to leave their company as well? Sometimes I'll say to people, do you really want someone for the next 10 years? Like, is that the perfect person for you? Great. What are you going to do to keep them for the next 10 years? How will you engage them? How will you develop them? How will you allow them to grow and keep progressing in their career? Because someone that comes into a business and sits there for 10 years and doesn't do any of those other things, that's not an attractive opportunity to most people. So looking at the different ways, and rather than it just be about us, we need to think about what it is for them as well. The businesses that I work with at the moment, I think that are definitely winning in this scenario are the ones that are thinking outside the box. They're looking at hiring for fit, hiring for culture, developing them, growing them. We work with a demolition business that literally says to me, Sharon, find me a junior that wants my job. And I'm like, okay, how long will they stay a junior for? How long do they want to stay a junior for? Okay, what do you mean? And he's like, how hungry are they? And he's just like, there's a job waiting for them. There's a step up waiting for them as long as they want it. And how ambitious are they? We will do everything to ensure that they succeed. But if they don't want to come in and learn, there's not a place here for them. And if they don't want to come in and grow, there's not a place here for them. And I'm like, so you talk to these juniors and they're like, I'm excited. Like, they're so motivated that the opportunity is there. Changing where you come from, though, I suppose looking at how you can transition someone into a different business. So, someone moving from retail into hospitality, someone moving from hospitality into customer service. Des, you made an example there before, and funny enough, I hit up the deli guy at Mount Cotton IGA the other week because his customer service was just phenomenal. And, I was just standing there gas bagging to him, and I said to him, where's your boss? And I said, because I think I have a job for you. I have a client that would love you. And I'm like, because he was so engaging. I was like, he's never going to stay a deli boy for long. Like, someone will snap him up, So we have great talent here, and we have young talent here. And looking at all the different options, like they're here. We just need to know how to engage with them. Could you consider someone, a mature worker, or someone that is closer to the age of retirement, and looking at them for part-time hours, particularly someone that's, 55 plus, potentially isn't necessarily wanting a full-time job, or isn't going to have the full-time opportunities presented to them like others. So they are more adaptable and have a wealth of experience to be able to look at as well and bring to the table. But are they your first thought? And often it's no, and it breaks my heart when you'll hear clients kind of say, my perfect person is 30 years old. Why? Why is your perfect person 30 years old? Tell me what made them so perfect at 30 that, an extra 20 years of experience doesn't get, unless it's going to be a physically demanding job, what's the difference? And I think asking yourself those questions as well is a great exercise when you're pulling apart that actual job description. Another poll showed, receiving 5 applicants or less, that I thought was interesting. And honestly, I'm probably not surprised at that either. it's not because you're a bad employer. It's not because, people aren't seeing you or you're getting noticed in the right places. It's because the market is different. And if your ad reads like everyone else's ad, there's nothing exciting about you. And you haven't actually got to present yourself any differently to anyone else. Has anyone received a marketing email lately? There's some that are going out. I'm sure they're just AI, but they do give me a chuckle. And it says down the bottom, click here if you'd like to unsubscribe, and I promise I'll send you one picture of my fluffy dog, and then you'll never hear from me again. And it just has all these good little quirky things down the bottom, and I almost just want to engage with them because they give me a chuckle. They made me remember them though, right? Like I remember that ad, I remember that marketing email because they were different. And if you're just writing a really generic ad and there's nothing special about it, people don't get to know how special you actually really are.
Sharon, can I quickly ask a question?
Go.
How successful is things like doing a video of your business showcasing what a day in the life of the role would look like? We've had some employers we've talked about that and they've done it and they've said, oh my gosh, I got way better applicants, and reducing the barrier to application. So making it really simple for them to apply. We had a coffee shop that could not find a barista. She was on the phone in tears, tried everything. And I said, well, how are you recruiting? And I said to her, why don't you just ask people to SMS you a short video of them pouring their most creative coffee pour? And she said, can I do that? I said, you own the business. You can do whatever you want. And she rang me back a few weeks later and said, I had 5 people that I took to interview and I picked 2 and I love them. And that was how simple their recruitment process was
Yep.
Send a short video. And she had been trying everything she could think of for months and it had not got, but she was asking for them to send their CV. She was asking them to do all these things that were preventing people from applying.
And it's funny because that's exactly what I was just about to say. Sometimes I think now, applying for a job can almost feel like you're applying for a home loan. Like there is so much, like your resume, your cover letter, create an account, confirm the email, complete these questions. Whatever happened to the good old drop off a resume? I actually spoke to a local designer here the other day, and she's looking for a job. And I said to her, when was the last time you just went and dropped off your resume? And I said, go down to the industrial park here. And I said, half of those businesses are small businesses. Could they do with some consulting work and a little bit of your expertise? And she's got, her business set up very differently. And I was just like, you become an affordable, asset to someone, but go out there and do it. And I'm like, because they're not responding to your email. And I'm like, how would they feel if you just knocked on their door? And she was like, I don't know. I've never done that. And I'm like, why can't we go back to sometimes old school, tools that actually work really well? Having a point of difference and people remembering you is amazing. And I think, businesses that are able to think outside the box and do that, ask people to, come and spend a day with us. We work with a business out in Roma. It's Roma, it's a hard location to recruit for. You've got a limited talent pool out there, and then you're competing with, the gas and big salaries as well. So trying to attract talent in those areas is tricky. We actually went out to the local sporting teams, we've engaged in a number of different networks out there, but, ultimately we went out to the sporting teams. And one of the biggest bits of feedback that we got was actually that there's companies out there that'll go and sponsor the sporting teams and they offer the captain every year a job. Guess what? They've got a talent pool ready to go. People know that if they score that captain position, they get a job as well, so it's there, but the company is really well known now, so it gets that extra exposure. That company out at Roma, not only did we go to the sporting facilities and speak to all the sporting clubs, big or small, we attracted talent from there, but then the business actually said, and we worked with this to kind of say, how do we get an understanding of what this is? It's quite a unique job. And so we were like, how comfortable are you having them come out and, have a ride along for the day, take 2 people, 4 hours each and, just give them exposure, and we run through the risks and, what was it actually going to be like? There were some people that come out of that and went, absolutely, that's so not for me. And that's what you want though, right? Like, versus I've now hired someone who isn't going to last, like you give them a taste of actually what it is. Do they love it? Like, do they actually want it? You get to see how hungry they are. Are they committed to coming and doing 4 hours with no money, like, as well? And that's another great way to be able to see those things. Des, you might, smack me for legislation there of doing something like that. I'm sure there's extra rules there that you have to do these days.
Yeah.
The one of the polls though that you showed is about the referrals, and I think good people know good people. So having a think about within your network as well. Who do you know that you could ask? Like, what do your employees know at the moment? Who do they know at the moment? Offering little incentives, and it doesn't have to be big. Like just incentives, or telling them we are trying to hire at the moment. Sometimes I think we even just forget to do the basics sometimes.
Sharon?
Yes, go.
Sorry, just to add for everybody's knowledge, in our hospitality and tourism working group, we're about to set up a closed Facebook group for hospitality and tourism business owners, operators, and managers. And part of the reason for that is an ability to share warm leads of employees or candidates. So effectively, if you as a business have interviewed, say, 5 candidates, you had 3 standout amazing people that you could have all hired, but you could only fill one job. Those 2 that you said, oh my gosh, these 2 people are amazing, rather than them leaving the Redlands, going somewhere else, this will be an ability to internally in a Facebook closed group say, if you're looking for, front of house or a chef or whatever it might be, I've interviewed some really good candidates, and the ability for us to share across businesses in our region that what I'd call top talent. So just letting those of you who are hospitality tourism know that that's about to come. And then if that works well, there's an opportunity where we could, anyone can set it up, but we could set up similar type of industry specific or even skills specific warm lead groups.
That's fantastic. And there are lots of those, already existing, out there on social media platforms as well. So, again, sometimes it takes the time to go and look for them. So, I mean, if we've got them at our fingertips, that's even better, Kate. I think, the knee-jerk reaction sometimes is just to put an extra ad on Seek, but, making sure that we're actually looking at the referrals, the connections that we have, advertising the opportunities in different ways, putting word of mouth out there, write it on a coffee cup, and how can we get it out there? And, if 50 people walked out of, your cafe today with a coffee cup that said, I'm hiring, it doesn't need to be anything. It could be, handwritten scribble on there, and this is our details. You don't need to spend extra sometimes just to come across differently. I think,
Thank you, Sharon.
Sorry,
it might just, if it's okay, we've got 20 minutes
Oh,
left
yeah.
for questions. Is there anything else you wanted to just quickly impart before we switch to everyone's questions?
No, look, the biggest thing right now, I suppose, is, change, do it differently, think outside the box, break it down and stop before you do the knee-jerk reaction of putting it out on Seek. Break down your role, work out exactly what you need, and try something different.
Thank you. That's awesome. Really, really good insight. Thank you. Now, time for questions. Who has a question for any of us, or comments, suggestions, whatever it might be? Don't be shy. It's always hard being the first to go. We've got Adrian, Emma, Melissa, Zahira. Hopefully still all there.
I didn't put you all to sleep, did I?
Hi, Adrian. Your video's just come on.
Yeah, morning all. Just question for me is probably trying to engage in that sort of early school leaver or school leaver space, and just seeing, what opportunities there are for employability in that space.
Great. Can I ask a quick extra question about that? When you say early school leaver, do you mean left school before they finish year 12, or do you mean just after they've finished?
Just after, yeah, like in that
Great.
sort of impressionable space where they're. So I'm a civil engineer in the local space, so trying to obviously engage in young youth that are wanting to go to university to become an engineer. I'd like to be able to, get across to those individuals as an opportunity.
Excellent. I'd be very happy after this to work with you. We, for the last 6 years, have worked very closely with all the schools across the Redlands. There's 16 high schools, and we have contacts directly into their industry liaison officers for all schools.
Yep.
We also work closely with the Lincoln Launch Program, which is Department of Education basically funded role. It's across the whole of the Redlands. They've just recruited their new incoming Lincoln Launch officer. She started about a week ago, and their role is specifically to work with those early school leavers. So once they walk out the school gate in November, for the first year to 2 years. So it's with those students who have dropped off, they haven't got themselves into a course or a qualification or a job. They specifically engage with them. So there's also that opportunity to connect you in there. But I will have a follow-up chat with you if that's all good. And I've got a few ideas of how you can connect in, including
Unreal.
upcoming expos and
Perfect.
speaking in school roles and all kinds of things.
Yeah, I absolutely open to that sort of stuff. Definitely.
Brilliant. Any other questions or comments from Sharon or Des on that early school leaver engagement, particularly from the recruitment side?
I would say from a recruitment side, Kate, I suppose what you do it well. You need to get in front of them in those last years of school, and know that they have options here in the Redlands before they start looking outside of the Redlands. At the end of the day, the big city lights, will often get the younger candidates, and so being able to give them some foundation here and know that they've got opportunity here is absolutely key.
Mm. Yeah, and Adrian, Kate will talk to you more, but we're always looking for people. We're always asked by schools, anyone from industry that like to come and talk to our students about a career, a day in the life of. So, if you're open to that, like you said, that'd be perfect. We can put you forward and come and have a chat because they probably don't know, what is the
Yeah.
role and what are you looking for? That's perfect.
That's spot on. Thank you.
And anything with today, your questions might not be specific to the topics we talked about today, but hopefully it's given you a bit more insight to the role of the RJC and what we are doing in your local region to try and drive job outcomes. That's the brief from the state government for this round of funding is job outcomes. We want to see job outcomes, and we want to see it in those primary industries that we've targeted. Outside of that as well, and also, yeah, how can we keep Redlanders working in the Redlands? That's a key thing too.
And support our Redlands businesses to have the talent they need to thrive and to grow if that's their aspirations, etc. Melissa, you've come off mute. Did you have a question?
I did. Thank you. Thanks very much for the information today. I work in the training world, so I've worked with employment agencies to assist unemployed people to develop and gain sustainable employment.
An important role.
A very important role and very rewarding role. Motivation is a huge issue with the people that we deal with. And being able to, a lot of the employment agencies are now requesting that if they are to book a course with us, that they would like connection with an employer at the end of the training. And we're finding that quite difficult to the linkage part of it, the aspect of it, because sometimes with the employers, their mindset might be that, oh, well, why would I give these individuals a go? Because they've been sitting, in that rut for a while. And that's one of the...
Or they don't want to commit up front when they want to be able to pick the best candidate at the time, as opposed to upfront saying, yes, we'll take somebody once they've completed training. So it's a challenge. And I think for what we've experienced, those upfront commitments tend to be easier with medium to large businesses. Smaller to micro businesses, they're not going to commit to taking someone on that they haven't know fully that they've got the training, that it's not the best candidate, so to speak. So because they are small and micro, and the impacts of having a bad hire, for example, is much more extensive than a medium to large business. The issue for our Redlands is that 95% of our businesses are small to micro. We have very small amount of medium to large businesses who are willing to take that, effectively, that risk up front. So that is a challenge, and it's definitely something we've heard before. And also, when we dig into the data, the people who are technically what you'd call unemployed on the books with with job service providers, quite a large percentage of them have been long-term unemployed, which then gets employers into the questioning around, why have they been long-term unemployed? What's going on? Is it too hard for me to, manage to take on, to adjust, to do whatever I need to do? Oh, it's all too hard. I'll try and find someone else. So there is an element of employer education. There's a lot that needs to happen if we're to get people who are long-term unemployed back into the workforce, supported, and able to retain and become meaningful contributors to our economy.
Absolutely. I hear it every day, so I agree with you. Thanks.
Yeah. Have you got success stories of things that have been working, or employers that are doing well and getting people who have been, say, long-term unemployed successfully into the workforce?
Yeah, we do. It's changing a lot of their mindset, I find. Because they see a gap in a resume, and they're exactly what you said, they get worried. They're like, why is there a gap? When they don't actually know, maybe it's because they've been bringing up children. Maybe they were a carer. Maybe there is always a concern, and they get really worried about it. But I find that if they give them a go,
Yeah.
the success stories can be really, really rewarding. They just need to change their mindset on a lot of it. But it goes both ways as well. Like it happens with, people can fall into the unemployed, and and then they just, it's a little easy sometimes. It's just, it's this hard balance. You've got to motivate people to get back out there. Then you also have to change the mindset of the employer as well, that look, just because the resume might say this, you need to talk to them first, and
yes, give them a chance.
Yeah. Well, maybe Kate and I could talk with you further on that as well, particularly, in our brief, trying to get job outcomes, and how, if it's a market sitting there, with our experience, how can we help?
Yeah, I noticed that you're having the healthcare next week. I'm going to pop out there, and hopefully you're both there, and I'll have a chat with you then.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, we'll be there. Yep.
Awesome.
I'll send you a follow-up email with the registration link, and then we'll get you registered.
Thank you.
Can I just chime in on that part of it as well? Sometimes when people just look at a resume, it doesn't tell a whole story. So getting past that resume is obviously the critical part there. So I'm not sure what their avenues for, actually getting to a conversation part, even with yourself, Melissa, before a resume is put in front of a client. I will often say to candidates, if I come across a resume and yet they're followed up with a phone call, I'll be the first one to say, I would not have called you based on your resume. And people are often shocked of why. And I'm like, and I think there was stats done not so long ago that a recruiter will take 1.5 seconds to look at a resume, which doesn't surprise me. We look at a lot of resumes, but there is something that's got to jump out at me. And if it's the fact that you haven't worked for 3 years, well, that's the only thing that jumped out. See, I'm moving on. But if there's something else that can get my attention, that might be enough to get past that barrier in the first place. So no different
totally
to
agree.
sending it out to an employer.
The quality of resumes that are being pushed out there by a lot of them by job service providers are absolutely terrible. Yeah. They are generic. They are boring. They are.
Yeah.
I was actually at a training group yesterday, and I was looking at their resumes, and it's got all their details at the top, and then the first block in the front of it says, I am looking for permanent or part-time or casual work. And I said, why would you say that? I know you're looking for work because you've applied. Why do you tell me that? Like, tell me about you. There needs
Yeah.
that's what the job service provider told me to do, or they wrote it for me.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly frustrating.
Maybe there's some help there, Kate, around just even, resume writing and how to, how to present yourself
Absolutely.
differently. Because you're right,
Absolutely.
there's a lot of amazing people out there that have been unemployed, some through no fault of their own, and they will be overlooked for that simple fact. Like you've got a massive gap on your resume. In fact, I told a very close friend the other day. She sent me her resume, and she's been working in a family business, through her network, doing some really cool stuff. But instead, the first thing that I seen on her resume is she's been on maternity leave for the last 3 years. And I was like, "But you're working though," and she was just like, "Oh yeah, but it's nothing exciting." And I was just like, "But tell me everything that you're doing." And she told me all this stuff, and I was like, "You need to take off that you've been on maternity leave for 3 years." And I said, because that's the first thing I noticed. And I said, like, I'm a mum, and I said, I have kids, and I said, but I'm also a business owner. And potentially as a business owner, the first thing that comes to your head is you haven't worked for 3 years and you've got kids. So now I've just given you automatically 2 barriers. And unfortunately, even from a HR perspective, absolutely, you can't be doing that, but we do, and they're the first things that jump into our head. So take the barrier away. Like, it's not a barrier. Like, she's working, she's capable, she's totally fine, and she has kids. That's not the thing, though.
I call that
an
experiences resume, not a chronological resume. I call it an experience. Tell me about what you're doing now. Don't hide it. Are you volunteering at school?
Yeah.
Are you
Absolutely.
canteen?
Yeah.
All of that stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. All of that kind of thing. I helped a finance guy recently. He wanted to get into finance. This is what I'm studying, Des. I'm going to be a finance specialist. And then tucked away at the bottom of his resume was he spent 5 years managing a restaurant and managed staff and hospitality and communication. I said, mate, we've got to get that out of hidden down the bottom there. And let's get that prominent, because you know how to manage people, you know how to talk to people, you know how to communicate. That's far more important. So it's just helping people think differently. But anyway, no, we can look forward to chatting to you more, Melissa, on that next week. Anything else in the time we've got? Yeah, hopefully today was helpful. Like I said, from an RJC point of view, I'll let Kate do sign off shortly, but there is work being done out there. You just got to connect with us, and we're here for employers that's our focus. Definitely.
And Zahara, I know we've spoken at a couple of events in the past about sort of your recruitment challenges and what you're looking for. How's things been going, and is there anything you got out of today that might help further? Still on mute, just in case you're not aware. Nope. Not there.
Might be busy.
Yeah. All good. Any last comments, questions, etc.?
Nope. All good, Kate.
Nope, all good. All right. Well, thank you to all of you for being part of our first webinar series, or first webinar as part of our webinar series. And I hope you got a lot out of today. I'll follow up with an email with some links to some key bits and pieces we spoke about. And yeah, thank you very much, and look forward to hopefully seeing you on future ones. And do give us your feedback. Did you find it useful? What other kind of topics would you like to see? What are the current challenges you're having you'd like us to help support or address? So thank you.
Yep. Thanks all. Appreciate your input.
Thank you.
Yep. Tell your friends for the next one. Tell your colleagues. But next one's in another month's time, Kate.
Yes, yeah. In a month's time. There was one a month coming up.
Yep. Different topics, different speakers all the way through. So feel free to join us every month.
Yeah, thank you. And some of the upcoming ones, just to share briefly, they're focusing on hidden workforce. So key themes are hidden workforce in our region, the mature workers, and the youth as 2 of the larger demographics or percentages of people who are available. So we'll have specialist speakers talking about how to physically target, find, recruit, attract, etc., both mature workers and youth. Another theme we have is, so it's all around cohorts. So another cohort that's hidden is our migrant community. So with that, we have close to 50% of Redlands community is actually born overseas. So we actually have a large migrant community, even if you don't realize when you're walking around. So we've sort of said, well, how do we better connect that element, which is migrant community? And quite often we are seeing a large increase in skilled migration visas or visa holders, and they often they're either working at a lower level to their actual qualification and skill. So how do we help support people who are on skilled migration visas into meaningful skills matched work in our region? And secondly, their partners. So a partner of someone on a skilled work visa has the same work rights as any other Australian. So you can work unlimited hours, etc., etc. Yet at the moment, a lot of the partners coming in are not participating in the workforce because they're finding it challenging, and there's barriers, and there's systemic racism that comes in. There's a whole heap of challenges that are meaning that we have a large untapped cohort in our region if employers are to think a little bit differently. So we'll do a webinar that's all about that. And we'll have a Migration Queensland expert speaking about the actual visa opportunities. So what does that look like for both workforce that's living here in the region already, and secondly, if you have a role that cannot be filled by a local community and you need to bring someone in from overseas, what does that visa process and recruitment opportunity look like? So we'll get a pretty good understanding of the skilled migration opportunity and the cohort. And then we've got other webinars that'll be focusing on other cohorts, other elements of recruitment, retention, cultural fit, psychological safety, as Des was saying. So we'll kind of take businesses who participate in the webinars on a bit of a learning journey, and open your eyes to a range of different opportunities.
Great.
So thank
All
you.
right. Thanks, Kate. Thanks, Kate, for hosting us this morning. Thank you. Thanks, Sharon, for giving up your time.
Thank you, Des. And thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thanks, Melissa. Thanks, Sahara.
Bye.
Have a great day. See ya.